may buntag kaninyong tanan.
Visayas played a major role in this achievement. In 2022, Western Visayas grew the fastest among all regions in the country at 91%. Reduce the deficit to GDP ratio, the deficit of the government to the size of the economy, to 3%, and that's also part of the plan. But at the same time, we should continue our build program, which was started by President Duterte. But that is very important move by the President Duterte, to spend at least 5 to 6% of our budget, our economy, size of our economy, for infrastructure. Do you know what it was before? For the last 50 years, we were only spending 2% of our GDP for infrastructure. That's why we suffer in comparison with our Asian neighbors.
Welcome to the Philippine Economic Briefing Press Conference. My name is Mara Salas from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, and I will be your moderator in this press conference. The post-SONA Philippine Economic Briefing, or PEB, is a platform to discuss the Philippine government's economic agenda and share the country's development story with the financial and business communities. Last month, on July 25, the second post-SONA PEB was held in Manila. And today, we continue with the domestic roadshow of the PEB here in Cebu to update our regional stakeholders of the developments in the Philippine economy. And without further ado, let me introduce the esteemed members of our panel. Joining us are Secretary Benjamin Diokno of the Department of Finance, Secretary Manuel Bonoan of the Department of Public Works and Highways, Secretary Benvenido Laguesma of the Department of Labor and Employment, Secretary Cristina Garcia Frasco of the Department of Tourism, Secretary Rafael Lotilla of the Department of Energy, Secretary Jaime Bautista of the Department of Transportation, Secretary Amena Pandaman of the Department of Budget and Management, Secretary Ivan John Uy of the Department of Information and Communications Technology, Undersecretary Joseph of the National Economic and Deputy Governor Francisco Daquila Jr. of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, and we will also be joined by Assistant Secretary Felicaria Guevara of the Department of Agriculture and Executive Director Cynthia C. Fernandez of the Public-Private Partnership Center. At this point, we now open the floor to questions from our press, but just a few reminders: if you have a question, please raise your hand, wait to be acknowledged, and approach the microphones. Please state your name and the name of your media organization, and also mention the name to whom you would address your question. We have a maximum of 3 questions only per reporter to give others a chance to also ask their queries. And we are now ready to take questions from the floor.
Good afternoon, Alan Domingo, GMA Regional TV. My question is, may we know the economic status in Central Visayas kung nasaan na tayo ngayon?
GDP, our regional GDP is growing. It has been rising by over 6% in the first 2 quarters of the year. It's well within track in growing further and achieve the targeted just about over 10% of poverty rate by the end of this administration.
Thank you, Yusek Puno.
Another
Go
question
ahead, sir.
sa DOTR Secretary. Secretary, aside from the BRT project, may mga project pa to be implemented dito sa Central Visayas or dito sa Cebu in particular?
Well, here in Cebu, the next project that we will implement is the Cebu International Container Port. No? This involves construction of a port in Construction Cebu. there will be a 25-hectare reclamation, no? And this port will be able to accommodate two big ships at the same time, no? This will be supported by ODA, no? And we're working with the Korean government for the financing of this project, no? So that's one in Cebu. There are other port projects that we are implementing. One is the port of Bantayan. We're working closely with the provincial government for the completion of this Bantayan airport. No? In other places here in Visayas, there are airport developments going on. One is the Tacloban Airport. We will increase the capacity where the passenger terminal building is being improved. We're also expanding the capacity of the Calibo International Airport. Last week, we just did a groundbreaking for the housing project of people who will be affected by the expansion of the Calibo International Airport. There are also expansions and repairs of airport in Antique, the San Jose Airport. Iloilo Airport is also being improved. We are working for a possible BPPB project for the modernization of Bohol Panglao and also Bacolod Silay Airport. So we're also working, doing a feasibility study for the Panay Railway. And of course, we have other road projects here in Visayas. No? We just we just did a groundbreaking of a bicycle lane in Calibo, which we expect to complete by December 5. No? There are many other port projects in other cities here in the Visayas, and we're expecting that we will be able to fund this next year.
Thank you, Secretary Bautista. Do you have questions from the floor? Please go ahead.
Maayong hapon, this is Guy Navarro from CCTN Channel 47. I would like to ask Secretary Frasco, based from what we have discussed on, or aside from the existing programs of Department of Tourism, any other tourism initiatives that will help grow our economy, not only here in Cebu, but also in Central Visayas?
Maayong hapon. Thank you for that question. The growth of tourism in Central Visayas has been phenomenal and very well aligns with the phenomenal growth of the entire country as far as our regions are concerned. And what we can expect as far as new tourism projects in Central Visayas include the putting up of 5 tourist rest areas that will contain a very well-appointed and comfortable lounge and waiting area for our tourists across Cebu as well as Bohol, a pasalubong center to help our small and medium enterprises sell their local goods. And most importantly, and which has been found to be a priority among domestic travelers especially, as well as international travelers, clean and decent restrooms. So we've already inaugurated 1 tourist rest area in Medellin recently. On August 27, we are inaugurating another one in Carcar, and to follow are the ones in Mualboal and Carmen. Aside from that, we are inaugurating as well in Bohol. We also anticipate the massive growth of cruise tourism in this part of the country, especially as very high demand from international cruise providers has been expressed. In fact, they're ready to start this year, according to them. So we're excited to collaborate with our local government officials, our governors, and our mayors to grow this cruise tourism portfolio. English as a second language is also a massive tourism product for Cebu in particular. We hope to be able to expand this to the rest of Central Visayas. Since Central Visayas is a treasure trove of diving destinations, which gives many reasons to justify the Philippines tag as the world's leading dive and beach destination. We're also holding the very first tourism dive dialogue in Cebu to consolidate all the national government, local government, as well as private stakeholders that will ensure that policies towards dive will be very supportive of this fast-growing industry. We're also putting up 2 hyperbaric chambers, new hyperbaric chambers, one in Dumaguete and another one in Malapascua. In addition to this, we also foresee that health and wellness tourism, MICE, meetings, incentives, conventions, and exhibitions, as well as our golf tourism can have huge potential for our islands here in Central Visayas. Accessibility and connectivity are imperative to support the exponential growth of tourism in this region, and therefore we're very happy to see that there's been a 315% increase in flights, due in large part as well to the Department of Transportation and our collaboration as a result thereof.
Follow-up question regarding those tourist rest areas. May we know when the second TRA will open there in Dakar City? Would you share to us, Secretary?
Yes, we're inaugurating it on August 27, shortly before the showdown for the Pasigarbo sa Subo. You're invited if you want to come. And we have several more tourist rest areas that we're inaugurating all over the country. That's a total of 10, plus 15 more that we're breaking ground on in the coming months towards 2024. I'd also like to add that since tourism roads are massively important to the development of emerging tourism destinations, very happy that through our collaboration with the Department of Public Works and Highways and the support of the Department of Budget and Management, we are able to institute new tourism roads this year, and over 1 billion has been devoted specifically for Central Visayas.
Regarding Pasigarbo, Secretary Frasco, will you attend with the said activity?
As a proud Cebuano, yes.
Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Secretary Fasco. Next question, please, from the floor.
Good afternoon, Desmay Padilla po ng DYSS Radyo. Kay Secretary Esadoli, Secretary po, dito sa Cebu, particular na sa MEPS po, may mga massive retrenchment sa mga workers nila. Do we have intervention po dun sa mga affected para po at least makahanap sila ng ibang hanap buhay nila? Thank you.
Maraming salamat. Yes, part po ng mga programa ng Department of Labor and Employment is how to assist and help yung mga, not just displaced workers, but disadvantaged workers, which means those in the vulnerable and marginalized sector. Meron po kaming programa na para po sa temporary emergency employment. Ito po yung TUPAD, no? Tulong pangkabuhayan para sa mga disadvantaged at displaced workers. Secondly po, meron din pong tinatawag na DOLE Integrated Livelihood Program, at bahagi po ito ng aming pagtitingin na yung mga nabibigyan ng employment, temporary employment, ay magkaroon po sila ng livelihood, nang sa ganun ay sustainable ang kanilang pagkukunan ng kanilang mga pangangailangan. And other than that, yun pong programa may kinalaman sa training, retraining, upskilling ng mga workers para may prepare po natin sila dun sa mga trabaho na pwede pong malikha, batay din po dun sa mga investment pledges na nagkakaroon na po ng proseso, at hopefully bahagi dyan yung nabanggit kanina ni Secretary Lotilla. Tumatanaw po kami ng mga malilikhang trabaho may kinalaman sa power sector at renewable energy. Sabi niyo ho, masyadong conservative ang estimate ko na 75,000. Mukhang masyado akong konserbatibo. So sabi ko sa kanya siguro mga 100,000 ay pwede na. Kasama pa yung mga related po na malilikhang trabaho because of the investments that will come in.
Thank you, Secretary Laguesma.
Good afternoon, I'm Kat from Samstar. My first question is directed to Tourism Secretary Fasco. Sec, you mentioned about 2.2 million tourists for Central Visayas. May we know the Cebu figures? And
I'd also like to know if, the length of stay of the tourists also in Cebu. And second question is directed to Secretary Jokna. Sir, how will the U.S. Economy affect the growth targets of the Philippines, and also if the interest rates will go down now or remain steady with the improvements also happening? And third question is directed to the ICT Secretary. Sir, do we have or do we lack cyber security professionals, or do we need more of them? How many? What are you going to do to grow this particular workforce? Thank you.
To answer your question, let me preface with the good news that as of last year, Cebu province, including the cities of Lapu-Lapu, Cebu City, and Mandaue, ranked second in terms of preference to regional tourism visitors as far as their overnight stay is concerned. But the good news is that as of this year, in the first half of the year, Cebu has now occupied the #1 spot in terms of preference for regional overnight travelers. And this is data that we have gathered across our regional offices as well as accommodation establishments and local tourism offices. The total for Central Visayas as of date is 2.2 million in international arrivals, and the share, or rather combined arrivals, and the share of Cebu in that number is at 1.55 million combined domestic and foreign. And this drives us to push for our program called the Philippine Experience that seeks to expand the success of Cebu in terms of tourism to its neighboring provinces by instituting a heritage, culture, and arts caravan that will introduce both our foreign and local tourists to the offerings of our other provinces in Central Visayas.
Yung unang tanong mo, maapektuhan ba tayo ng slowdown ng US? And also, dadagdag ko na yung the China economy is also slowing down. So I think the whole world is slowing down. So ang tingin ko naman, hindi tayo masyadong maapektuhan kasi hindi naman tayo katulad ng ibang bansa na depende sa exports. No? Although may epekto rin yan. Kasi ang economy natin ay consumption-based, domestic. No? At saka meron tayong strong public infrastructure program. So basta tuloy-tuloy lang tayo sa consumption plus yung pag pinagpatuloy natin yung mga build better more projects natin. In fact, may programa tayo na 194 priority projects. Hindi masyado tayong maapektuhan. Now, on the interest rate, sa tingin ko, medyo bumabagal na yung move to increase interest rates. Kasi nga, nakita nila na pag masyadong mataas ang interest rate, nag-slow down yung economy, kakaroon ka ng recession. So, sa tingin ko, matatapos na siguro yung cycle na yung pagtataas ng interest rate. So, in that case, hindi rin tayo kailangan magtaas ng interest rate. And sa forecast namin ng BSP, we will hit the target range of 2 to 4% by the fourth quarter of this year. Pababa na yung inflation rate. And by next year, we will hit it right in the middle of 3%. Ang target na talaga natin, 3% plus or minus 1%. So, in that sense, hindi na tayo siguro kailangan magtaas ng interest rate.
Your question on the cybersecurity, to compare, for instance, Philippines and Singapore, no? Singapore has more than 2,000 cybersecurity professionals. The Philippines has about 200. And of the 200, 80% are working abroad. So you can imagine how much is left in the Philippines. So we need to really scale up our cybersecurity skills, no, and our digital workforce. So that's part of our intensive effort to do that. And we're working with the private sector, with all the IT security companies, including the software companies, to develop the cybersecurity courses, localize them, and introduce also certification programs. We're incorporating these certification programs in either our ICT Academy or working with TESDA and with CHED in developing the courses to do so. As you know, we have about 1.7 million workers in the IT BPO sector. So this 1.7 million are mainly ICT enabled, ICT literate workers. They're into software engineering, they're into creatives, they're into digital marketing. So we are developing a 6-month program for near hires to equip this 1.7 million with the necessary cyber security skill sets, so that the training period would be much shorter because they're already there, but at the same time, it immediately increases the value of our IT BPO sector, because we will now be one of the few, if not the only, IT BPO country that all our workers are cybersecurity trained. And as an offshoot of that, we also would want now to create a new sub-industry in the IT BPO sector. So everybody's outsourcing to us their call center, their software development, their healthcare system, their back office system. Why don't they also outsource to us their cybersecurity system? And that's our goal today, to develop that capacity, that capability to be the outsourcing center for cybersecurity worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Uy, Secretary Diokno, Secretary Frasco.
Good afternoon. I'm Mitch from the Freeman newspaper. I would like to address this question to Secretary Bautista. There are over 1 million unclaimed license plates all over the country, and Central Visayas is the highest number. We have around 670,000 unclaimed license plates. Do you have any standing order to release this unclaimed plates?
Yes, I just talked to the regional director of LTO here in Cebu, no? And they are now working with the dealers for them to be able to dispose or to claim all these licenses. There's around 600,000 unclaimed licenses. No? In the last 5 weeks, LTO was able to issue or release 26,000 out of the more than 600,000. One of the biggest unissued plates are the motorcycle plates. And there is one big dealer that did not participate in the distribution of these plates in the past. But the RD, the regional director of LTO, was already able to convince them to participate in the distribution. So we're expecting that this 600,000 will be released within the year.
Sir, one more question. Sir, regarding to the BRT project in Cebu, are we on track?
Yesterday, I did a tour of the phase 1 of BRT. No? I was informed that there is a small delay, no? But I will already talk to the contractor, and they already have a catch-up plan, and that they made the assurance that phase 1 will be completed by December of this year.
Thank you, Secretary Bautista.
Secretary Rutilia, sir, is there any update about the MVIP and also the implementation of the power rate subsidies for 4Ps beneficiaries?
Thank you very much. First, on the Mindanao Visayas Interconnection Project, as I mentioned this morning, Mindanao has an excess capacity of up to 800 megawatts. And so if we finish the Mindanao-Visayas interconnection project, 400 to 450 of that can be transferred to Cebu where it is needed. But to finish the interconnection project, we also have to address the overland congestions in Cebu itself. And so I've asked the assistance of Governor Garcia insofar as the choke point in the Magdugo line and 18 poles of NGCP, 18 towers, which have to pass through the protected area in Cebu City. Because unless those are addressed, then we cannot bring the power to Cebu itself, nor can we transmit this to the north and south. Right now, as you know, the power situation in the Visayas is more complex than in the case of Luzon and Mindanao because of the lack of interconnection and the lack of major hydro projects or power plants in the Visayas. So to address that, we are actually supplying you from Luzon through the HVDC project that runs, lines that run from Sorsogon to Samar, then to Leyte, then to Cebu. And that offsets the lack of power during the afternoon peak and in the evening peak. So it is important to secure these lines because otherwise if something happens to these lines, if they are accidentally cut, then you're going to lose a major source of your power. And then on the Cebu-Negros Panay line, we have around 80 megawatts stranded in Negros. And it's been stranded for more than 5 years now. So to get that to Cebu again, we will have to unlock it by finishing the Cebu-Negros Panay. So we know that NGCP has been delayed, and that's why the President made it a point to address that in his State of the Nation address. But we also need to do what we can in order to facilitate the construction or finishing the transmission lines. Now, on the lifeline rates, I would like to reiterate my appeal, and I'm asking media to reiterate this, that the 4Ps beneficiaries in particular, and there are 4.2, 4.1 million all over the country, are qualified for some degree of discounts, provided that their monthly consumption is below that which is allowed for the distribution utility. So for example, in VECO, the Visayan Electric Cooperative franchise, if your monthly consumption is 100 kilowatt hours and below, you're entitled to some discount. In fact, if you're consuming 20 kilowatt hours a month or below, you practically don't pay anything. You pay less than 10 pesos. But to be able to continue to qualify for that, they need to register. And so I'm asking for the help not only of media but also of our barangays to help these people register. Because if they belong to the poorest of the poor, they might not even have the time to fill up forms or to make time to go to the offices of their distribution utilities. And our deadline is end of August. We have already extended it by a month. So starting September, if they don't register, they will see suddenly an increase in their rates. The difficulty here is that while DSWD has a complete list of the beneficiaries of the 4Ps program, these do not correspond with the list of the household owners registered with the distribution utility. So to be able to really verify, they need to present their identification and to show that indeed it is they who are entitled to the 4Ps and to the lifeline rates. So thank you for asking those questions. And one more appeal, while I said that there's sufficient power even supplied during the El Nino months, remember that for every 1 degree increase in temperature, we usually see a nationwide increase in demand of 100 megawatts. So it's not the insufficiency of supply that we are principally worried with, but the increase in temperatures. So the higher the temperature, the higher the demand. And that's why we are asking, especially our bigger consumers, whether residential or industrial and commercial, to have effective energy and energy efficiency and conservation measures, because this will really help the rest of the consumers to have adequate supply through the El Nino months, especially in the first quarter of next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Lotilla. Next question, please.
Good afternoon, Charmaine Balagan from SMNI to Secretary Jokno. Sir, good afternoon. Sir, any development sa IRR na Maharlika Law or kailan po ba ito mararamdaman ng mga Pilipino?
Okay, dalawang tanong yan, ano? Kailan, anong development dun sa IRR? Under the law, we have 90 days upon signing of the law, of the bill into law. Pero hindi na namin inantay yung 90 days, no? Inumpisa na namin gawin yung IRR the day after the Senate approved the bill, no? So we expect the IRR to be released maybe as early as mid-August and at the latest by end of August. Now, kailan mararamdaman ng taong bayan to? Hindi kagad mararamdaman yan kasi pagkatapos ng IRR, then we will have to recruit people, no? We have to organize the office, magkakaroon kami ng opisina, we have to detail some people from other agencies, etc. So yung proseso na yan siguro mangyayari yan hanggang end of the year. And so, by that time, saka pala kami lalabas to sell yung concept ng Maharlika. Although lumalabas na kami ngayon, pero hindi pa yung konkreto kasi inaantay pa rin nila yung IRR at saka yung mga tao na magpapatakbo ng Maharlika. So, I would say, next year, makakakuha na siguro tayo ng mga investment, pero hindi pa rin yung kagad mararamdaman ng taong bayan. Kasi talagang nararamdaman niya, pag for example, nag-invest kami sa isang proyekto, pag nagawa yung proyekto, mararamdaman na yan. No? Ganun din. And some of the projects na gusto namin paglagay ng pera, ay hindi naman magagawa in a year or two. No? So for example, iniisip namin, baka maglagay kami ng pera doon sa isang bridge na ginagawa from Cavite to Batangan. Eh, maabuti ng 5 taon yun bago magawa. Diba? So, ganun yan. Alright?
Thank you, Secretary Diokno. Do you have any other questions? Okay, while we are waiting for those questions to come in, we can proceed to the advanced questions we received. This is for Secretary Bonoan. What is the government's strategy in addressing the traffic congestion in Cebu City?
Well, there are several projects that are being lined up or being implemented actually to address some of the traffic congestion problems in Cebu. As I mentioned, I think earlier, there's going to be the we're planning for the Metro Cebu Expressway project that is proposed to extend from Ningalilla, Cebu City, Mandaue, and Consolacion, and the second segment is from Mandaue, Consolacion up to Danao City. And this is a total of 56.9 kilometers in 3 segments. Actually, the department has already started actually constructing through our own capital funds
about 5 kilometers of this, but the rest of the projects will have to be, we're planning to implement it through public-private partnership. So this is going to be one of those projects that we intend to implement. The other one is, of course, yung Cebu Mactan Bridge, fourth bridge that will again be constructed between Cebu and Mactan. We are now in the process of undertaking the detailed engineering design, so construction might start by next year. This is a 3.34 kilometer bridge, 4-lane bridge, and it will cost about 76 billion. We also have some local projects like the Guadalupe-La Hogue bypass road to address some of the congestion problems in that section. This is 2.66 kilometers, 4-lane roadway with 2 bridges, and then the Mambaling South Boulevard, about 1.1 kilometers, and also to address congestion in the area, and Cebu City South Boulevard. So these are some of the projects that, of course, some of the projects that are being lined up, major projects that are being lined up to address traffic congestion in Cebu. But of course, not to mention actually that there are several road improvement projects, that are being undertaken for the improvement, the widening of particularly the national roads that across Cebu. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Bonoan. We also have a question for Secretary Pangandaman. Could the Secretary please provide updates on the full devolution and implementation of the Bandanas Garcia ruling, including status of financial assistance to LGUs?
During the start of the administration po, we were tasked, there's a committee on development per EO 187 composed of the DBM, DILG, NEDA, and DOF, and members from the LGUs, the leagues that we have. We were tasked to review the executive order, and now the NEDA is the head who's undergoing the study, meaning while we are on study, the full devolution is in transition, and that we are going to review the tasks and responsibilities of those responsibilities that will be retained to the national government. Kasi with the Mandanas ruling, there will be full devolution, meaning meaning the services from the national government will have to be given to the local government units for them to service their people. So we need to address that hindi po pare-pareho yung capabilities in terms of technical capability ng ating mga LGUs. And then there are some projects, especially the ones that being undertaken by DPWH, DOTR, even the ICT and DOE, that are highly technical na hindi po kaya i-manage and implement ng ating mga LGUs. So, yeah, we're still studying it. It's still on suspension po. So maybe in a few weeks or months, we'll have something to show to the President on how to move forward. What's the next question?
The next question.
NDA ba yan?
Yes, including the status of financial assistance to LGUs.
Local Government Support Fund. In our 2023 budget, I don't have the exact figure of the total local government support fund, but we are continuously providing for local government units around the country. We have, there's one in DILG for water and health facilities. Under the DBM po, there's an amount of, I think, roughly mga 10 billion pesos that that we give to local government units as financial assistance. It can be in a form of infrastructure development, also construction of open spaces or even parks. And there are also assistance for calamity-stricken provinces and cities and municipalities.
Thank you, Secretary Pangandaman. Do you have any other questions from the floor?
Good afternoon,
Okay, we
everyone.
have time for one more question.
Good afternoon, everyone. Edmond Isola from UNTV. I want to address my question to Attorney Genevieve, Assistant Secretary of Department of Agriculture. Good afternoon, Attorney. Ito po kasi isa sa mga inaabangan ng mga tao na i-mention ng Pangulo regarding po sa 20 pesos per kilo na bigas. Malapit na po kaya ito magkatotoo at kailan po kaya at gaano po kaya kalapit? Thank you po.
Thank you for that question. The presidential promise of the 20 pesos per kilo is a goal. It's an aim. It's not something that we are working on it to make production cost. One of the reasons why many of our products, rice in particular, is very pricey as of the moment. It is a combination of many factors. So one of which is the cost of production inputs. It's very high compared to other countries in our region. But as the President has said, one of his campaign promises talaga is to make not only rice, so lahat din po ng mga basic commodities. Siguro lang nag-concentrate lang po sa rice because that is our staple food. But we are working on it. We're trying to, that is why we have developed, we have formulated some strategies, lalo na yung pagpapababa po ng mga farm inputs natin dito, lalo na dito sa Pilipinas, para ma-achieve po natin yung goal na yun. So yung pong 20 pesos, it might come sooner, it might come later, pero definitely the whole government is doing its best for us to achieve that goal of the 20 pesos per kilo po ng rice.
Thank you very much, Assistant Secretary Guevara. And this officially ends our press conference. We would like to thank our esteemed panel and our media friends for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon.